He was not the strongest of the gods. That title belonged to Thor, wielder of the mighty hammer Mjolnir. He was not the wisest either. That was Odin, the Allfather, who saw futures woven from the threads of fate. No, Tyr was something different. He was the bravest. When the prophecies first spoke of the great wolf Fenrir and how he would one day bring about the twilight of the gods at Ragnarok, fear crept into the halls of Asgard. It was a cold, quiet dread that even the most powerful deities could not escape. Odin, ever the strategist, began to scheme, his mind a labyrinth of plots and counterplots. Thor, the warrior, prepared for a battle he knew was inevitable, his knuckles white around his hammer's handle. They chose caution and conflict. But Tyr, he chose responsibility. Before the fear, there was a different relationship. Fenrir was just a pup, and while the other gods watched him with suspicion, seeing only the monster he was destined to become, Tyr saw something else. He was the one who fed the growing wolf, who trained him, who spoke to him not as a beast, but as a being worthy of respect. Fenrir, in turn, trusted Tyr completely. It was a bond forged in mutual regard, an island of calm in a sea of growing anxiety. So when the gods finally decided that the prophecies were too dire to ignore, that Fenrir must be bound to protect their world, their eyes turned to one god. They knew that binding a monster of such immense power would require trickery and strength. But they also knew that betraying a friend, looking into the eyes of one who trusts you and knowingly leading them into a trap, requires a different kind of fortitude. It requires a courage born from sacrifice. Tyr understood the unspoken truth hanging in the air. If the gods were to lie, if they were to break a sacred bond of trust to save themselves, someone would have to pay the price for that deception. A sacrifice was necessary to balance the scales of honor. And in the silence of his own heart, Tyr had already decided he was willing to be that sacrifice. In the next chapter, Tyr faces the moment that will define his legend for all time. He must choose between his honor and the survival of the gods, and make a sacrifice that will echo through eternity. The story of the bravest god is not over. Like and subscribe to witness the next part of the saga. The gods feared the prophecy. They saw the great wolf, Fenrir, growing larger, wilder, his strength a shadow stretching over their golden halls. They knew he was destined to bring ruin. So they hatched a plan, not of open battle, but of deception. They brought Fenrir before them, a gathering of silent, anxious deities. In their hands they held a ribbon, Gleipnir. It looked like nothing soft as silk, thin as a whisper. But it was forged by dwarves from impossible things. The sound of a cat's footfall, the beard of a woman, the roots of a mountain. It was stronger than any chain, stronger even than fate itself. Fenrir, ancient and wise, smelled the trickery in the air. He saw the nervous glances, the hands resting on weapons. He looked at the fragile ribbon and then into the eyes of the gods. "You wish to test my strength again?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. "I will allow this. But your past attempts have been less than honest. This time there must be a show of good faith, a sign of trust." He opened his massive jaws, revealing teeth like daggers of ice. "One of you will place a hand in my mouth. If the ribbon breaks, your hand is returned. If it holds and you betray me, then the price is paid." A heavy silence fell over Asgard. The gods exchanged fearful looks. Thor the mighty gripped his hammer Mjolnir, his knuckles white, but he did not move. Odin, the Allfather, who had sanctioned this very plan, could not meet the wolf's gaze and looked away. The air grew thick with shame and unspoken fear. In that moment of collective cowardice, one god stepped forward. It was Tyr, the god of justice and honor. Without a word, he walked to the great wolf, his face a mask of grim resolve. He looked at Fenrir, an understanding passing between them, and placed his right hand into the waiting maw. He knew the truth. The gods quickly wrapped Gleipnir around Fenrir's legs. The ribbon tightened, it held. Fenrir strained, he roared, he thrashed with a fury that shook the very foundations of the world. But the silken cord did not yield. It only grew tighter with every struggle. A dreadful realization dawned in the wolf's eyes. He had been tricked. The bond was a prison. The jaws closed. Tyr did not cry out. He stood, maimed and silent, as his hand was severed. The gods had contained the beast. They had averted disaster for now. But in their victory, something sacred was broken. The trust between gods and the world was shattered. In that act of betrayal, Ragnarok was no longer a distant prophecy. It became an inevitability, sealed not by fate, but by choice. Next time, we journey to the Bifrost Bridge to meet the eternal watchman of the gods, Heimdall, the one who will sound the final warning. Subscribe and join us for the next chapter of the saga. In the age of gods and heroes, strength was a shield, and wisdom was a sword. Thor, the mighty, guarded Asgard with his thunderous hammer. Odin, the All-Father, protected the 9 realms with his boundless knowledge. But there was another guardian, one whose power was not in muscle or in mind, but in perception. His name was Heimdall, the Watcher of the Gods. His sight was a marvel, piercing through the veils of distance and time. He could see a single leaf fall in a forest leagues away. His hearing was so acute, he could perceive the sound of grass growing on the earth, the soft whisper of wool growing on a sheep. From his eternal post at the very edge of Asgard, atop the shimmering rainbow bridge known as the Bifrost, Heimdall's vigil never ceased. Day and night, through sun and storm, he stood alone. While other gods feasted, celebrated, or slept, Heimdall remained awake, his gaze sweeping across the horizon, a silent, unwavering sentinel. This was a discipline born not of duty, but of destiny. Odin, the wisest of all, placed his absolute trust in Heimdall's watch. Thor, the mightiest warrior, fought his battles with confidence, knowing the gate to their home was secure. Even Loki, the master of deceit and mischief, whose schemes were woven in shadow, feared that unblinking gaze. Loki knew that no secret could remain hidden forever from the one who sees all. Heimdall didn't wait for peace, for that was a fleeting dream. He didn't wait for a final victory, for conflict was the nature of their world. He waited for a single, specific moment. The moment when the worlds would tremble, when a final warning would be needed. He waited for the first sign of Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. And when that time came, Heimdall, and Heimdall alone, would be the first to know, the first to act. His horn, Jallarhorn, rested by his side, ready to sound the call that would echo through all the realms. In our next episode, the first shadows of the end begin to fall. Heimdall will confront his ancient nemesis Loki as the final battle draws near. The story is just beginning. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of this epic saga. Thanks for watching. Some stories aren't about victory, they're about duty. They're about knowing your end is coming and walking toward it anyway. This is the story of Heimdall, the guardian of Asgard, the god who knew exactly how his story would end. He would not survive Ragnarok, but he would be the one to begin it. For ages, he stood watch, his senses so sharp he could hear grass growing on the earth and wool growing on sheep. He saw everything, knew everything. And so, when the trickster Loki finally broke free from his chains, when the great wolf Fenrir shattered his bonds, Heimdall was already watching. The moment had come. The long prophecy was at last unfolding. He lifted Jallarhorn to his lips, the horn whose sound could travel through all the 9 worlds. Its call shattered the silence of ages. The sound wasn't just heard, it was felt. Mountains trembled, the seas rose in fury. In Asgard, the gods froze, their feasting and laughter turning to ash in their mouths. They all turned as one, their faces grim, looking toward the sound, toward their destiny. This was the signal. There would be no turning back. The final war had begun. At the very end of the world, on a battlefield of gods and giants, Heimdall and Loki would finally meet. Guardian and betrayer, order and chaos. They would fight not for survival, but for balance. Their battle was a foregone conclusion, written in the threads of fate long ago. And in the clash of their final desperate struggle, neither would walk away. Heimdall would fall. Loki would fall. The Watcher would die, but he would die knowing he had done his duty. He had held the line until the very end. But Heimdall wasn't the only god who faced a grim fate. In the next episode, we meet the noble god who gave up his future for love, Frey, and the one choice that ultimately doomed him. Stay with the story. Like and subscribe for the next chapter of the end. In the age of gods and giants, a time of clashing shields and whispered prophecies, there was one god who walked a different path. While his brethren readied for war, he sought a world bathed in sun, not blood. This is the story of Frey, the Lord of Peace, the guardian of the harvest. Unlike the thunderous might of Thor or the scheming wisdom of Odin, Frey's power was quiet, nurturing. He ruled over the golden fields, the gentle rain, and the warm sunlight that promised life. Under his gaze, the earth flourished and the seas remained calm. He was the god of prosperity, of gentle abundance, a beacon of hope in a world bracing for its end. The prophecy of Ragnarök, the twilight of the gods, loomed over them all. Odin gathered his warriors, Thor polished his hammer, but Frey dreamt of a different future. He believed the world didn't need to be conquered, it needed to be healed. He saw life where others saw only an inevitable, glorious death. Then, one day, his eyes fell upon a sight that would change the fate of the 9 realms. From afar, he saw the giantess, Ger, her beauty so radiant it outshone the dawn. In that moment, Frey, the god of peace, was overcome by a feeling more powerful than any battle lust, a deep, profound longing. He was utterly, hopelessly in love. But to win her heart, he would have to make a choice no warrior god should ever consider. He possessed a legendary sword, a magnificent blade so powerful it could fight on its own. This was the weapon destined to serve him in the final battle, the key to his survival against the fire giant, Surtur, at Ragnarök. For a chance at love, for a moment of peace and a life defined by an impending war, Frey made the ultimate sacrifice. He gave away his sword. He traded his strength, his future, his very destiny, all for the hand of the woman he loved. In this single act of love, he sealed his fate. But what becomes of a god without his weapon when the end of days arrives? What is the true cost of choosing love over war? The story is far from over. Frey's choice has consequences that will ripple through the ages, and his fate was set in motion long before the final battle cry. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe to join us for the next chapter, where we uncover the true price of Frey's sacrifice and why his doom was inevitable. In the age of gods and giants, while thunder echoed and schemes were woven in the halls of Asgard, one deity walked a different path. This was Frey, lord of the sun-drenched fields and the gentle rain. He was not a god of war, nor a seeker of hidden, dangerous truths. His domain was the earth itself, the golden harvests, the calm seas, and the quiet prosperity that blesses the world of mortals. While the other gods sharpened their blades and braced for the twilight of Ragnarök, Frey looked upon the world and saw not a battlefield, but a garden in need of tending. He believed in healing, not conquering. He believed that the coming darkness could be held back not by force, but by life itself. But fate has a way of testing even the most peaceful hearts. From a high seat in Asgard, Frey gazed into the realm of giants and saw her. Ger, a giantess whose beauty was like the first light of dawn. And in that moment, he was overcome, not with a warrior's desire to possess, but with a deep, soul-shaking love. To win her heart, to bridge the chasm between their worlds, Frey would have to make a choice no other god would ever consider. He would have to make a sacrifice that would echo through the ages and seal his own destiny. He gave away his sword. Not just any blade, but the one weapon in all the realms that could fight on its own. A blade destined to turn the tide in the final battle. For a chance at love, Frey surrendered his future, his power, and his protection. This act of love, however noble, came at a staggering cost. By trading his sword, Frey disarmed himself before the greatest threat the gods would ever face. His fate was set in motion, not by a prophecy of war, but by a vow of peace. In our next chapter, we will uncover the consequences of this sacrifice and see why, long before the first fires of Ragnarök were lit, Frey's end was already written. The story is far from over. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Thanks for watching. In the stories of the Norse gods, some names echo with thunder, others with whispers of wisdom. But one name holds the power of both war and wonder: Freyja. We often hear of Freyja as the goddess of love, a vision of beauty and desire. But this is only half her story. She was not a passive deity waiting for heroes. She was a warrior queen, a leader of the Valkyries, riding a chariot pulled by cats into the heart of battle. When a fight was done and the air grew still, it was Freyja who walked the fields of the slain. Half of all warriors who died with honor were chosen by her, not by Odin. They did not ascend to Valhalla to feast and wait for the final war. They were welcomed into her own hall, Folkvanger, the field of the people. Here, they found not just glory, but a home, a community, and the continued embrace of life and love. But Freyja's power went far beyond the battlefield. She was a master of a deep and ancient magic called Seer. This was not the brute force of Thor's hammer or the strategic cunning of Odin. It was the magic of fate itself, the power to see what was, what is, and what will be. She could weave destiny like a thread, a skill so potent that even Odin, the Allfather, grew wary. He saw in her a power he could not control, a knowledge that surpassed his own. Freya was a force of nature, love and loss, beauty and bloodshed, all held in perfect, terrifying balance. She represented choice, the fierce independence to forge her own path, both in life and in death. She was not just a goddess of the Gear. She was a power unto herself, a reminder that the strongest forces are often the ones we least understand. What was this magic that even Odin coveted and feared? And how did Freya's influence ultimately shape the fate of all the gods, leading toward the final twilight of Ragnarok? The story is far from over. Thank you for watching. If you want to uncover the secrets of Sarah and Freya's ultimate destiny, make sure to like and subscribe for the next chapter. Before the 9 realms, before the first frost giant, there was only the void. But even then, knowledge was not a given. It had to be earned. Odin, the Allfather, was not born with all his wisdom. He sought it, he sacrificed for it, and some of his most potent knowledge came not from battle, but from a goddess of love, war, and magic. Her name was Freya, and she taught him Seer. This was not the magic of thunder or steel. Seer was a deeper, more mysterious art of magic of visions, of seeing the threads of destiny and learning how to subtly pluck them. To wield it, a warrior god like Odin had to embrace what many called weakness. He had to be vulnerable, to open his mind to the currents of fate, a practice often reserved for goddesses. The whispers in Asgard were cruel. Some gods mocked him, calling his practice unmanly. They saw it as a surrender of his warrior's pride, but Odin enjoyed their scorn. For him, knowledge was a weapon far sharper than any spear, and sight was a shield stronger than any fortress. Pride was a small price to pay for the ability to see what was coming. Through the rituals Freya taught him, Odin's visions grew clearer. He peered into the mists of time and saw the future more vividly than ever before. He saw the great wolf, the world serpent, and the fire giant. He saw the final fateful battle, Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. Freya too saw the end. But she did not weep or try to stop the inevitable. She was not a goddess of denial. She was a goddess of preparation. While Odin sought to delay destiny, Freya prepared to face it. She began to choose her warriors, the Einherjar, filling her great hall Sessrumnir with the souls of the brave. She understood a fundamental truth. Some fates cannot be avoided, they can only be met with courage. Their stories are intertwined, a dance of wisdom and preparation at the world's edge. But who are the choosers of the slain? The ones who carry these heroic souls from the battlefield? In our next chapter, we meet the Valkyries. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe to continue the journey into the heart of the myth. In ancient myths, death in battle was not an end, but a beginning. It wasn't about fading into darkness, but about being chosen for a greater purpose. The Valkyries did not bring death. They brought meaning. When a warrior fell, his last breath staining the cold air, he did not vanish. He would look up, and through the storm and shadow, he would see them. Armored figures on horseback, descending from the heavens, their armor gleaming like fate itself. They rode through the chaos, their eyes scanning the battlefield with divine judgment. They were not mere servants of the gods. They were the arbiters of valor. Not every fallen warrior was chosen. They sought only those who fought with true courage, who embraced their end without fear, whose spirit burned bright even as their body failed. These were the souls worthy of eternity. With a solemn grace, the Valkyries would lift the chosen from the mud and blood. Some were guided to Odin's great hall, Valhalla. There, they would feast with heroes and train alongside Thor himself, forging an army for Ragnarok, the final world-shattering war. Others were carried to the tranquil fields of Folkvanger to find peace in the hall of the goddess Freya, honored for their bravery without the command to fight again. The Valkyries decided each warrior's fate. They were judges of the dead, their choices shaping the very destiny of the cosmos. Every soul they selected was another shield, another spear, in the gods' desperate preparation for the end of all things. In our next episode, we will follow these chosen warriors into the hallowed halls of Valhalla and discover the chilling reason why the gods needed an army of the dead. The saga is far from over. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Thanks for watching. In the great halls of Valhalla, the chosen warriors did not rest. These were the Einherjar, the bravely fallen, handpicked by the Valkyries from the battlefields of Midgard. But their arrival in this golden realm was not an end to their struggle. It was the beginning of a new, greater purpose. Every dawn they would don their armor and take up their arms. In the vast fields of Asgard they trained. They fought. Steel clashed against steel, a thunderous symphony of preparation. They would fall in combat, their bodies broken, only to rise again, whole and unscarred, as dusk settled. This was not a cycle of punishment, nor a game for glory. It was a hardening, a forging of souls. From his high throne, Lixkajalav, the All-Father Odin watched them. His gaze was ancient and knowing, seeing not just the warriors they were, but the heroes they needed to become. His son, Thor, the mighty god of thunder, often stood among them, his presence a booming reminder of the stakes. He trained beside them, his hammer Mjolnir a blur of lightning, sharing his strength and resolve. The gods knew a great shadow was creeping across the nine worlds. A final winter was coming. Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. And they knew it would not be won by divine power alone. They needed an army of mortals who had already stared into the face of death and did not flinch. Warriors who had tasted defeat and risen stronger for it. Valhalla was not a paradise meant for eternal feasting and rest. It was a crucible. It was the training ground for the final battle at the end of all things. Every clash of steel, every drop of sweat, every feigned death was a lesson, shaping them for the day they would stand shoulder to shoulder with the gods against the coming darkness. In our next episode, we will explore the halls of Valhalla itself and delve into the Norse code of honor, where dying a good death was more important than living a long life. Thank you for watching. Follow our channel to continue this epic journey into the heart of mythology. In the stories of the Norse, there is a hall so vast its rafters are made of spears, its roof tiled with golden shields. This is Valhalla. But to see it as a paradise, a final reward, is to misunderstand the Viking soul. Valhalla was not heaven. It was preparation. Those who entered its golden gates did not come to rest. They came to train. Every morning, the fallen warriors, the Einherjar, would rise, take up their weapons, and march onto the plains of Asgard. There, they fought. Not in sport, but with the full fury of battle, until every last one of them had fallen once more. Yet, as evening fell, their wounds would vanish. They would rise again, whole, and return to the great hall. There they would feast. Long tables groaned under the weight of food and drink. But this was not a celebration of peace. It was a restoration of strength. Every bite, every drink was fuel for the next day's battle. This relentless cycle of death and rebirth served a single, solemn purpose: readiness. From his high throne, Odin watched. He wasn't looking for the strongest or the most skilled. He was measuring courage, testing discipline, and weighing resolve. Thor himself walked among the warriors, not as a distant god but as a commander, teaching them how to hold their ground when the very foundations of the world begin to break. The Norse believed the afterlife did not erase fear. They believed it sharpened it into a weapon. Valhalla was a constant, brutal reminder that death was not the end. It was simply another trial, another chance to prove one's worth before the final battle. The true test was yet to come. In our next episode, we'll explore why honor mattered more to the Norse than survival, and discover what kind of warrior they truly respected. The saga continues. Like and subscribe for the next chapter. In the old world, the Norse did not ask if they would survive the coming darkness. They asked a different question. They asked, how will we stand when it arrives? For a warrior's worth was never measured by victory, but by the courage they showed in certain defeat. This is the heart of why Valhalla mattered so much. It was never about a reward waiting in the afterlife. It was a hall of honor, built to recognize a single, powerful choice. The choice to fight, even when the outcome was already written in the stars. Think about it. The prophecies told them everything. Thor, the mighty god of thunder, would fall at Ragnarok. Odin, the Allfather, wise and powerful, would be devoured by the great wolf Fenrir. Even the gods, the most powerful beings in the cosmos, were destined to die. And yet, what did they do? They stood their ground. They fought. Always, they fought. Because to run from your fate, to cower in the face of the inevitable, was a fate far worse than death itself. The Norse believed that a good death, a noble death, was one you walked toward willingly, with your eyes open and your weapon in hand. This single, profound belief shaped everything. It shaped their warriors, turning them into legends. It shaped their gods, making them both divine and tragically human. And it shaped their vision of the end of the world, not as a tragedy to be avoided, but as a final, glorious test of will. In our next episode, we bring all the gods together for the final feast, and we will see exactly how the Norse prepared for that last fading dawn. Stay with the story. Like and subscribe to be there for the next chapter. The gods knew how the story would end. Odin had seen it in the threads of fate, a vision paid for with his own eye. Thor had felt it in his bones, the thunder in his veins growing quiet and heavy. Even Loki, the trickster, the agent of chaos, had shaped this final chapter with his own choices, weaving a path that led to this very moment. And still, they prepared. They did not prepare to escape their fate. They knew that was impossible. The prophecies were written, the destinies sealed. They prepared to meet it. In the great halls of Asgard, the gods gathered their strength. The air was thick with a solemn silence, a shared understanding that transcended words. In Valhalla, the Einherjar, the chosen warriors, trained with a grim intensity, their ghostly forms clashing in endless practice for the final war. Across the realms, the Valkyries rode without rest, their wings beating a steady, relentless rhythm against the darkening sky. No grand speeches were made to rally the troops. No false hope was promised to ease their minds. There was only quiet determination, a shared resolve forged in the face of the inevitable. They did not ask each other who would survive the coming twilight. That question was meaningless now. Instead, they asked who would stand with them. Who would face the fire and the flood, the wolf and the serpent, and not turn away? This was the final, most profound lesson of the Norse gods. Not that fate could be broken, or that destiny could be rewritten, but that it could be faced. Faced with courage, with honor, and with an unbreakable will. Ragnarok was coming, and the gods of Asgard would be there to meet it, standing together until the very end. In the next episode, we'll explore what the Norse people believed truly mattered when the end arrived, and why their gods are still remembered thousands of years later for how they chose to face their doom. The story continues. Like and subscribe for the next chapter. The ancient Norse didn't worship their gods because they believed they were eternal. They honored them precisely because they were not. In the fading twilight of their age, each god met a fate woven from their own choices, their own nature. This wasn't a tragedy, it was their greatest lesson. Imagine Odin, the Allfather, ever restless, ever seeking. He didn't fall to a random challenger, but in his relentless pursuit of knowledge, sacrificing himself to understand the end of all things. He taught us that wisdom sometimes demands the ultimate price. Then there was Thor, the thunderous protector of Midgard. His end came not in a grand hall, but on the battlefield, defending our world from the serpent that would devour it. He felt protecting humanity, showing us that true strength is found in service to others, in shielding the vulnerable until your very last breath. And Loki, the trickster, the agent of chaos. His fall wasn't a glorious battle, but a slow, agonizing consequence. Chained and tormented, his fate was a direct result of the discord he sowed. His story is a stark reminder that our actions always have echoes, and we must one day face the music we have composed. The Norse people looked at these stories and saw something profound. They didn't see distant, perfect rulers to be obeyed. They saw examples, they saw guides on how to live, how to face inevitable loss with dignity, how to stand firm when all hope seems to have vanished, and most importantly, how to meet the end, whatever it may be, without surrendering the very essence of who you are. This was the true legacy the old gods left behind. It wasn't a promise of immortality or a kingdom in the heavens. It was the gift of courage. The courage to live fully, to fight for what matters, and to face the final darkness with an unbroken spirit. This concludes week 3 of our Norse saga, but the cycle is not yet complete. New gods will rise from the ashes. New worlds will be born from the old, and the grand legend continues. If you want to explore what comes next, subscribe to our channel and join us as the story goes on. Thank you for watching.